Your weekly home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode 107. I'm your host, Brandon, and the voice joining me tonight will be Zach. Zach is in the process of moving homes and doesn't have his Wi-Fi where he is at currently. So we've got him on basically a phone call. So Zach, you there with us?
What's up?
What's up, man? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different because I'm the only one that's going to be on screen tonight. And of course, Justin can't make it tonight either. He's putting together a boxing ring at the gym. So he's got his hands full tonight as well. But nonetheless, we're still going to make this happen one way or another. Definitely going to ask for all of you that are watching to join in the comments and help us make this thing a success tonight. But Zach, we're talking about some stuff tonight that I think is pretty interesting. You know, this is episode 107, like I said, and we're calling it WAP because of the hit song out right now, WAP by Cardi B. That's our inspiration for the night. Have you heard that song yet, Zach?
I sure have.
And what do you think of it?
I'm not like the biggest fan of Cardi B, but it's popular with the kids, so she's doing something right.
I mean, I wish we could get that much attention off of just saying some dumb acronyms and running around shaking our little money makers, but we'll try our best with the acronyms tonight. And I want to get right into that because WAP, in my opinion, stands for worry about the Padres, because that's something that every team in Major League Baseball needs to worry about right now is the San Diego Padres, or should I say the Slam Diego Padres, because those guys have been launching balls out of the stratosphere and they've swept the state of Texas this past week.
Yeah, absolutely. They are absolutely on fire. In my mind, I was thinking that WAP stood for Wild Acrobatic Plays.
That could also fit very, very well for Fernando Tatis, because he jumped. They don't play in a gym, but he jumped out of the entire ballpark to catch a ball this past. What was it? Was it last night or was it Sunday that happened? I can't remember.
I think it was last night. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I made a graphic about it where it was kind of the Jordan Jumpman logo, except it said Tatis instead of Jordan, and it had him doing his jump as the A in Tatis. I think it looked pretty fire. If I'm not, if I'm sitting here tooting my own horn about it, but what I wanted to talk about in specific with the Slam Diego Padres, Zach, is how the role of the designated hitter in the National League has really made all of that possible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was a game changer for the National League. It's just such a huge weapon to have, where you don't have to use a pitcher as basically an automatic out or maybe a bunt at best. You can actually have someone who's dangerous up at the plate.
Yeah, I agree. And it's altered their batting lineups. It's altered the way that the managers can approach a game. And whenever they're playing against teams that are American League teams, that's always been kind of a leg up that American League teams have had, is they're used to playing like that. And National League has to go in there and kind of just throw something together, and you usually end up with a guy in the DH hole that's not used to being there. They're not used to, having an extra bat in there. But the Slam Diego Padres have definitely taken advantage of that. Starting last Monday night, just a few moments after we went off of our broadcast last Monday, Fernando Tatis Jr. swung on a 3-0 count and went opposite field to hit the first of many grand slams for the Padres. Before we get too much further into it, what did you think about Tatis swinging on a 3-0 count?
I think that he had every right to swing at that pitch. I think teams have given up leads bigger than that in the past. I mean, no lead is safe in all reality. The people that bode for the unwritten rules of baseball. I think some of them make sense, but I think that one is a bit ridiculous. If you don't want a pitcher to hit your pitch, then don't give him something to pit. Don't give him something to hit. It's that simple.
Yep, make a good pitch, and that's all you have to do. So yeah, so he swung. I agree with you, actually, Zach. I think that you have no reason to sit there and just take it because you have a big lead. I've seen teams score 7, 10, 12 runs in a single inning. So to be down 7 runs, I mean, you can come back from it for sure.
Absolutely.
But Tatis, when he hit that first grand slam, he was batting out of the leadoff position, which is obviously at the first of the lineup. So that meant that the bottom of the lineup had to get on base in order for him to have the bases drunk for him to hit that grand slam. So that means the 9 hole, which is normally reserved for the pitcher, was an active bat in the lineup. If that had been last year's rules, that pitcher that bats before him may have grounded into a double play, and then we're sitting here talking about, oh, well, he just hit a 2-run home run.
Absolutely.
So the DH definitely played a part in Tatis's grand slam, and then the very next night, Will Myers got to come up to bat immediately after the DH in their lineup. So once again, the DH had already batted. He got on base. Without the DH in that lineup, that player isn't in there. The pitcher has to have a spot in the lineup. Another shuffle, and maybe you don't even have Will Myers batting where he was.
Yeah. I mean, the DH is a great weapon, and I think from now till whenever, I think it's going to become a permanent thing. And I think the COVID season was their way of sneaking it in and kind of just getting it past all the naysayers.
Absolutely. I think they're smart to include it. You know, obviously you're seeing the results firsthand because you've got teams in the National League that are just cranking out homers, most notably the Padres and the Dodgers, both of whom have, I believe it's like 50 something home runs already in this shortened season, which is insane. And then again on Wednesday night, Thursday night, and then again following the Saturday night, all of the home runs, all of the grand slam home runs can be traced back to saying without the DH, they probably don't happen.
Right. And I think that just makes baseball more exciting. I mean, there's not much more excitement coming out of baseball than a grand slam. I mean, that's very exciting to watch, and I think it's very good for the sport. And I think Tatis himself is very good for the sport.
Oh, I agree 100%. You know, talking about exciting, the Padres are outscoring teams by bundles. They outscored the Astros 22-8 in their series, in their 3-game sweep of the Astros. But another team that's been super exciting that kind of has flown under the radar because of all the excitement of the Grand Slams in Slam Diego are the Chicago White Sox. So here we have another WAP where we're talking about, are the White Sox going to be a problem?
Yeah,
because
and that's a team you never would expect to do it much of anything.
They're finally starting to reach some of that preseason hype that they had built up around them. And in the past week since we last talked, they set an MLB record for hitting 27 home runs.
Jesus.
27 home runs in a single week. And most notably, Jose Abreu has hit 6 of those. He had 4 straight at bats with a home run.
Wow, that's insane.
It's something that I've never seen before, and I don't think that we'll ever get to see anything like that again. But the White Sox could definitely be a problem going forward because they do have those big bats. The American League Central isn't the strongest division. The Indians out there, they look like they're potentially sellers because we saw today that Clevenger was listed on the trade block.
Yep. Yeah, and we kind of called that. We saw the writing on the wall with the riffraff between the team and Clevenger. So this was, just this was something that was going to happen, I think, regardless. Yeah, I think that really softens up the AL Central's just pitching in general. They're not necessarily, like you said, known for big pitchers. Obviously, Shane Bieber on the Indians is a real good pitcher, but that's really the only formidable team that I can think of off the top of my head, or pitcher rather.
I'm not sure if you can see the comments on your phone
Yeah.
there, Zach. You can? Okay.
Yep.
We had a comment, a Brad comment, and say that he wouldn't mind seeing the White Sox and the Padres in the World Series. That would be a pretty interesting World Series this year. However, I'm a big fan of seeing the Padres and the Rays in the World Series. I think that would make for a very interesting World Series.
Yeah, that would be awesome. See if that Tampa Bay starting lineup could hold off all those hitters.
Yeah. But like you were saying about Clevenger, we did kind of call that. We kind of thought that whenever they were demoted, him and Zach Plesac, that would be something to watch at the trade deadline, because those are pretty big pieces that a lot of teams would definitely be willing to go after. I think most notably one of those teams should be the Boston Red Sox. They're not going to be playing to win this year, but they have enough pieces that they could put together a package to get somebody like Clevenger, who still has years on his contract, to come to Boston, be a starter for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be an amazing piece for the Red Sox to pick up.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Red Sox, we have another WAP for the Red Sox, and it's wanted. Any prospects. Any prospects will do for the Red Sox right now, because they're in full rebuild mode. It's definitely obvious. And, you know, they're the first team in the Major League Baseball to hit 20 losses this season. So if your fans out there haven't embraced the rebuild yet, you definitely need to start embracing it. Brad's saying Benny and JD for Clevenger. I don't think that's too steep of a price, I think, but JD has those crazy opt-outs in his contract, so he would have to be willing to sign an extension in conjunction with the trade wherever he decides to go, or wherever he gets traded.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do think that moving Martinez now is the answer, because the pieces are already in place to replace him on the team. You simply move Devers to be the full-time DH. He's had now 3 seasons in Major League Baseball to try to get established, and he just continuously racks up the errors on the defensive side of the ball. He can hit, and that's always been his strongest suit. So why not just make him a full-time DH? Go ahead and christen him Little Poppy and just let him run with being the DH of the Boston Red Sox. Then down in Pawtucket right now, you have Tristan Cassis, who is rumored to be the future third baseman of the team. He's sitting there ready to go, chomping at the bit. And that dude can mash.
Nice.
So I think it makes perfect sense to just go ahead and make that move, get out from under the $22 million weight of JD Martinez's contract, and start anew. Start with these younger dudes. Let's see. The Red Sox have
absolutely.
The Red Sox have. Go ahead.
I think the JD Martinez deal at the time, I think it seemed good, but that's a lot of power to give a guy like JD that's basically just a hitter. And like I've said before, if you're going to pay a guy just to hit, he better be spot on. And I think the Red Sox are kind of regretting that deal at this point with the whole no trade clause and opt-outs and stuff like that. It's probably going to be hard to get rid of him while he's not hitting super great.
Yeah, well, he's actually started to heat up in the past few weeks or so. He's been one of the few bats that have actually swung halfway decent, but everyone also knows that if he does get hot, the type of damage that he can inflict, especially in a September postseason run building up into October. He's a guy that you definitely want to have as the anchor of your lineup.
Right. You'll just have to find a team that's willing to make that gamble and take him on.
Absolutely. And I've got some commenters coming in here talking about Bobby Dahlbeck, bringing him up. I think with Bobby, he's more inclined to be the team's future first baseman. And as long as Mitch Moreland and Michael Chavis are platooning that position, I think they're content with just letting him stay down in the taxi league, down at the Pawtucket level, just waiting for next season when Moreland is no longer there. He's a free agent at the end of the year.
Right.
But the Red Sox have already been active with the trades. We were following along Friday night, whenever the deal broke between the Red Sox and the Phillies, and I think it was a good deal. A lot of casuals on Red Sox Twitter and Facebook have been kind of complaining about getting rid of Workman and Heath Hembry, but I think it was smart. You've got a reliever who's a free agent at the end of this season and a reliever who is a free agent at the end of next season, and you trade them for a young pitching prospect who is the absolute gem of this deal in Connor Siebold. And then you also get a big league ready pitcher in Nick Pivetta, both of whom have years worth of control and at a much lower dollar value than those two free agents to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see what Workman did his first outing with the Phillies?
Yeah, he pulled a Workman and decided to just give up the save and take the L against the Braves. And when I first heard it, I thought that, oh, well, he came in late and, he already had traffic on the bases and all that stuff. No, he came out, got out of an inning, blew the save in that inning, came back out with a fresh frame, and then lost the entire game. So he definitely sucked it up in his debut.
Yeah. So anyone who's sad about seeing him leave Boston, I wouldn't be.
No, the only reason that they're upset about it or whatever is because of the whole nostalgia factor that you've got with Workman, a guy that's won 2 championships with the team. He won it. He was there in 2013, and he also won one in 2018. And then, of course, Heath Hembry was there in 2018 as well. So the nostalgia factor is what gets a lot of these people. They've gotten to know these names and gotten to know the faces, and it's almost like they don't want to invest into learning anybody new.
Sure.
Speaking of nostalgia, and Brad's already alluding to it in his comment, that the casual fans that want to bring back Brock Holt. Brock Holt recently was DFA'd by the Brewers, and you would think that the Red Sox Twitter was celebrating a World Series because they were saying, bring him home, bring him home. He's not coming. The Red Sox are not in the business of signing a guy that's batting 100 on the season. They're not in the business of bringing in a guy that's 3 for his last 30 and who is likely to be a free agent at the end of the year. Why waste your time and money when we're trying to rebuild an entire farm system that Dave Dombrowski completely bombed? It's not going to happen. Give up on the idea.
Yeah. His best days are behind him. And I think the Brewers are sad that they took him on because it's not going to pan out. It's just, I think in baseball and sports in general, when you take on an older guy, man, it has some risk for sure.
Yeah, I believe he's going to be 30 at the end of the year, or this year sometime, which isn't saying that he's old. Mike Yastrzemski just started making an impact in the major leagues, and he just turned 30. So
yeah, that's true.
You can definitely, right, you can definitely do it, but it's just not anything that I think that he's going to be able to bounce back from. A lot of people are saying that it's just because he's not with JD Martinez anymore, and that's why both of them were slumping this year. And if that's the case, then maybe they both get picked up by the same team, but it sure as hell isn't going to be the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's move on. I saw something today, Zach, and I sent you the screenshot of it, and I want to get your take on it, being that you're a Cardinals fan and you're there in St. Louis. Yadi Molina posting "fuck COVID" with a gaggle of people around him, and then immediately deleting it off of his Instagram. Of course, some savvy people out there caught some screenshots and started sharing it, and it's made its rounds around social media. But what do you think about that personally, and what are you hearing locally being said about that?
Personally, that is a god awful look for Yachty. I mean, he is obviously just one of the huge leaders of that team. A lot of players look to him for guidance, and I mean, the catcher is always basically the on field coach. And I get it. He beat COVID. He's not positive for it anymore. But even if you are going to do something like that, leave that off of social media. I mean, only bad things can happen when you try to post that stuff. I haven't really heard anything locally, um, but I would assume that either people are saying, "Yeah, fuck COVID," or people are saying, "Wow, that's a terrible look," because just like everything else these days, COVID has somehow become politicized, and you either agree that it's a dangerous thing, or you think that it's fake or whatever. And I even if nothing happened to Yachty, which I believe he was asymptomatic the entire time, it's still just not a good look. I mean, you could still have some sort of impact on someone by having people over at your house or something like that. And it's just not a good thing to do, I don't think. And like I said, if you are going to do it and you just don't care, then leave it off of social media.
Right. Now, I get that, something you were saying in there is, saying like, oh, he's a survivor. Fuck COVID. It sucked. I wasn't allowed to be around my family because of that. Now I'm better and I've got my family and friends here with me and all that stuff. I get that, but it is a terrible look when you consider the fact that the Cardinals, they played opening weekend and then basically sat out for 2.5 weeks waiting to get all this shit out of their locker rooms. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're carefree and not going to take this serious anymore. We can afford to postpone a few more games. We don't mind playing double headers every friggin' night. It's a
Yeah, yeah,
bad look.
yeah,
You know,
terrible.
I saw some guys on Twitter today that they were Mets fans and they were boohooing about the fact that now that the Mets, since they had a little outbreak, they have to play, I think it's 34 games in 34 days to finish out the season. And I commented and I was like, dude, you realize that the Cardinals had to play 55 games in 45 days. It could always be much worse. And they were like, yeah, but fuck them. They did it to themselves and blah, blah, blah. It's like, how do you think the Mets players got involved in some of this stuff? It didn't just magically appear in their locker rooms.
Yeah. You know what's surprising about the COVID tests is that the Reds were able to just basically squash it. And as far as I know, they only had one positive player.
Yeah, the Reds did a good job squashing it, and the Mets did as well. That both teams had little minor outbreaks, and they were able to isolate it and get it contained before it spread throughout the dugout. Of course, the Reds missed a few games. Trevor Bauer missed one of his starts because of it. They had to play a doubleheader, and that led to their broadcaster actually getting fired during the middle of that doubleheader.
God.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw all about that, right?
Oh yeah.
Man, dropping the hard F on on a live broadcast, definitely a way to get yourself fired. Definitely a way to make sure that you never get a job in Major League Baseball ever again. But going back to the Mets real quick, they had their famed Subway Series with the Yankees postponed. So now the Yankees have been impacted somewhat by the coronavirus and the COVID postponements and all that stuff. But what this does, in my opinion, is kind of gave the Yankees a much needed break because they've been battling injuries more than any other team, frankly, in the entire league. And they
Right.
needed some time to just kick back and relax and chill. Do you think that this was kind of like a much needed bye week for them?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy that they have all this talent on this team, and every year when they start getting hot, it's like, oh man, the Yankees, this, that, and the other, comparing Aaron Judge to Michael Jordan and all that crap. And then they all go and get hurt. Stanton's hurt, Judge is hurt. It's like every year they just have this rotating cycle of injured players that they have to rely on to win their games, and then they get hurt. So this is a much needed break for them, but I don't know. I mean, what are they going to do without these players? You know what I mean?
Well, because of this break, it gave them a few extra days to heal. Some guys are coming off of their 10-day IL stints now and will actually get to play the Mets series whenever it's made up instead of sitting out that series. Most notably, Aaron Judge will be back into the lineup a lot sooner rather than later.
Oh,
And
nice.
and Judge has been in the news recently because they asked him what he thinks about the idea of playing in a playoff bubble. And he's not a big fan of playing in a bubble. He says that he would prefer to get to play in the actual ballparks where the teams are supposed to be playing. We've been saying for a long time on our show that we think that the bubble is the way to go, and that we think that playing a playoff bubble makes a lot of sense for Major League Baseball. So why is it that you think that somebody like Aaron Judge would be so against it? Somebody who's, one of the faces of the league.
I mean, my first thought is that he doesn't want the lack of freedom. He doesn't want to be trapped in a bubble like the NBA players and all that stuff. He wants to go out and do whatever he does, which I don't know what that is. He might stay home and do the things that he's supposed to do, or he might not. Who knows? But
When you're
that's my
Aaron
first thought.
Judge, you can't really hide out in public. You're 6'12" and
Sure.
you're the face of the New York Yankees, one of the faces of Major League Baseball. You're not going to hide anywhere. So I think that's kind of a lame excuse. To me, I think that he's afraid to play at ballparks that aren't Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, that's it. That could be it too. Like we always say, it's way easier to hit homers.
That short porch makes his entire career. And if you look at the numbers support it. At home for his entire career, he's batting .317 with 70 home runs, 155 RBIs. That's in 206 games. In 207 games away from Yankee Stadium, he's batting .234 with 49 home runs and 111 RBIs. Those numbers take a significant downward plunge whenever you get him away from Yankee Stadium. If you play in a playoff bubble in a neutral site that's not New York City, guess what? He's not going to be the hot hitter that he wants to be in October.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's see. Going on. I'll go ahead and get this out of the way. The Nest podcast is sponsored in part by the Beard Struggle. If you've ever tried to grow a beard, then you know the struggle. We can help you out. The Beard Struggle has tapped into centuries of Viking knowledge to inspire beard growth and overall health. Tap into your inner Viking and check out some of the great beard products available at thebeardstruggle.com. The ultimate kit comes with everything you're going to need to get your facial hair on point. You're going to get day and night elixir oils. You're going to get a scruff balm and a full beard balm. You're also going to get a bottle of conditioner and beard wash. You even get a Savage brush to help you keep everything smoothed out. Use our promo code at checkout, NEST20, and you're going to save yourself 20% at thebeardstruggle.com. So we talked a little bit about MLB playing in a bubble and how that's looking like it's going to be the way to go. But we do have two other sports that are playing in the bubble, and they're currently in their playoffs. And here we have another example of WAP, because it has been a wild ass playoffs for both sports. Have you kept up with any of the NHL, Zach?
I know that the Blues are out. I know the Blackhawks are out as well. But other than that, not much.
Yep, you're absolutely right. The defending champions St. Louis Blues are gone. The Blackhawks decided to just suck it up, so they're gone. But who still remains? The Boston Bruins, and they are playing lights out hockey right now, and I'm for it. I've been watching several of the games. In round one, I was chirping with Ian from Growing Up 8-Bit quite a bit because he's a Canes fan. So
nice.
he and I were chatting back and forth, giving each other, a little bit of trash talk. And the Bruins, of course, came out on top of that series. And they've had some interesting stuff going on because the starting goalkeeper for the Bruins, Tuukka Rask, got an emergency message from his wife concerning his daughter and left the bubble to go tend to that. So, best wishes to them. I hope everything works out. But 35-year-old backup goaltender Halleck has had to step in and kind of fill the net, and he's done a bang-up job. They finished out the series with the Canes, and they're already 1-0 against the Lightning. So good on him for stepping in at the right time, getting hot, and hopefully leading the Bruins to another Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you have a Boston team to root for while the Red Sox shit their pants.
Oh, it's been rough watching the Red Sox struggle. I think one of the commenters a little while ago said all the Red Sox need to do is just go for 8 more games. As long as the season makes it to the end of August, it's a successful season for the Red Sox because they'll get under that luxury tax threshold. And that was the whole reason for trading Mookie Betts to begin with, was to get under that dollar amount. But you're right. It is nice to have something good to celebrate and something good to cheer on because, boy, it's been rough. One of the more wilder moments in either of the playoffs happened last night in the NBA when Luka went absolutely ham and drained a last-minute three-pointer in overtime to tie the series at 2-2. You saw that clip, I'm sure, right? It's been all over the place today.
Yeah, that kid is the truth. I mean, the sports world on Twitter was absolutely on fire this morning about it.
Yeah, it was awesome. He hit that little step back three, and dude had ice water in his veins because that's a Jordan moment. That's a LeBron moment right there when the team trusts you to have the ball in your hands with the time running out. If he misses that shot, they're down 3-1 in the series against they play the Kawhi. They're playing the Clippers, yeah, and they're down 3-1 to the Clippers at that point. They might as well phone it in. They're gone. But now it's series tied 2-2. Neutral court. There's no home court advantage there in LA to kind of cheer on the Clippers. We got a whole new ball game. And if Luka is able to knock out the Clippers, LeBron James is Luka's biggest fan.
Yeah, no kidding. And speaking of LeBron James, that series is interesting too because the 8-seed Oregon Trailblazers have really kept it interesting. I mean, Damian Lillard is absolutely on fire, and for them to put the screws to the Lakers like they're doing is really exciting.
Yeah, Dame time has been unreal in the bubble. That dude has come to play every single day, and I'm for it, man. If the Portland Trailblazers can knock off the Lakers, not only do I win my bet, but it's just always nice to see LeBron go home sad.
I bet you LeBron is one of those guys that is really suffering by playing without fans. I think he's been playing with people cheering him on for so long that he's just almost used to it, and I bet he feeds off of it. And I think these younger guys are a little bit more used to playing with maybe not no fans, but they're definitely not used to, packed arenas like LeBron is. And I bet you they can remember the times when they played an AAU ball and stuff like that and kind of fall back on that. And I bet you LeBron is really struggling playing with just silence.
That's a pretty good point you bring up, Zach. Even when he was in high school, his games were being broadcast on ESPN and stuff like that. So you're right. He's been in the limelight since he was a teenager, and this is the first time
Since
that
day
he's
one.
not.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the first time that he's not got all those people there.
Right. He went from high school, like you said, was all touted on TV and stuff, and he went straight to the first round pick for I think he was the number 1 pick, and it was all lights are on him since then. So he doesn't know anything else but that.
Yo, Cody hopping in here. Speaking of losing bets, I made a bet with Cody that he couldn't touch 95 in the cage, and he did. So I had to be a man of my word, and I sent him one of our T-shirts, and he should be getting it sometime this week. Glad to see you on here again, Cody. And
Now, the big
yeah.
question is about that is, did he smoke it or did he just hit a ground ball?
Nah, he made pretty good contact. We posted the video. He made contact with a few. In the video, I think he hits 3 or 4. Some of them you can tell that he doesn't really get all of, but 1 or 2 of them he gets, at least part of a barrel on it.
Nice. I'll take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He did confess and say that he thinks that it was a little slower than 95, but it was somewhere around 90, which is still pretty damn good for somebody that hasn't swung a bat in 6 years.
Absolutely.
Have you been keeping up with the news out of the NFL, Zach?
Refresh my mind.
I'm talking specifically about Earl Thomas and the Ravens.
Yes.
For those that don't know, Earl Thomas got cut from the Ravens team after multiple altercations. The most recent one, he was fighting with a teammate, and that led to, a big locker room fallout and all that stuff. But earlier in the offseason, he also was involved with that altercation where he was found by his wife in bed with his brother and another woman running the train or whatever. So he's definitely had quite the offseason, and now he's going somewhere else. Where do you see him landing?
Man, I don't know. I bet you Cleveland would love to pick him up, but I don't know if they'll be able to.
Him and Myles Garrett on the same team? That just spells like Bash Brothers waiting to happen.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
The general consensus on Twitter is suggesting that he's most likely to find his way to Dallas. So we'll see what happens with that. I think anywhere he goes, he's going to be a disruption to the locker room. I mean, look at how it was when he left Seattle. He's not Legion of Boom Earl Thomas anymore. He's not the backbone of a team. He's a guy that wants to get paid like he's the backbone of a team, but he's going to be out doing all kinds of other crazy stuff that's not worth it.
Yeah, I don't think that Jerry Jones necessarily wants to deal with that. He's got a lot of other stuff to worry about. So I don't see him going to Dallas.
No, I don't either. And the other big story out of the NFL, Zach, is that the NFL COVID testing lab in New Jersey came back with 77 false positives.
I did see that. Yep.
So my question is, what would happen if that were to happen in, say, week 2, week 3, a Friday before you're supposed to have all these games or whatever, and then all of a sudden you've got all these false positives popping up? Are you going to have to just postpone an entire week of football action to resolve this, or are they going to have to figure out a way to better get these test results and to make sure that they're not getting false positives or false negatives?
Yeah. I think the league needs to just fork up the money and pay whatever it takes to get accurate, quick tests, and they can't cut any corners. We've seen what it's done to MLB, and they're not nearly as contact heavy as NFL. And I think there's going to be a lot more people on the field too with the NFL, and they can't afford to lose like that. They don't have the luxury of doing double headers and stuff like that. I don't know what their TV deals are. I don't know if they can maybe sneak a game in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or whatever, but they have to do something to try to mitigate that kind of stuff.
Guys complain about it all the time, playing on a Monday night and then have to turn around and play on Sunday, that it's a short week or whatever. I couldn't imagine the backlash if they had to play on Tuesday or Wednesday and then turn around and play the following Sunday to keep the schedule. That would be something terrible for the NFL. Brad's saying that the NFL needs to play on a bubble, and of course we've been talking about it for weeks now, that we think that 3 bubbles is actually needed for the NFL. One in the East, one in the middle, and one out West. And you just play within your bubble, and then whenever it's time for playoffs, you consolidate to the playoff bubble. I think that's the best and most fair way to do it. And it also gives you some pretty intriguing matchups like we've talked about before. So the NFL definitely need to figure something out because, every week that Justin's on here, he's like, a life without football is almost like death to a Southerner. And a lot of these players and a lot of these fans of these teams, they want to play.
Right. Yeah. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for them to pull off a whole season. And I don't know what they're going to do if they get an outbreak like the MLB has done. I don't know if they can come back from it like the MLB can. They don't have that kind of luxury. Like you said, you can't plug a game in and then expect them to play the next week on Sunday.
Yeah, it's just not anything feasible. King Hap commenting in there. Love seeing whenever he pops into the chats. Good dude right there. Big fan of Boston sports. And if you guys like following him along with podcasts or whatever, check him out at the Happy Hour Social Club. I want to talk a little bit about Cam Newton. Cam Newton has been my guy for a while now, coming to New England and doing the big things that he's going to be doing. Reports now are that he is running away with the starting job, specifically since Jared Stidham was announced that he did have a bit of an injury that set him back, and he's not really taking the full reps. But Cam Newton was my QB1 as soon as they signed him. Do you think that there's any chance now that Cam Newton is not the starter week 1?
No, unless he breaks his arm or breaks his foot or something ridiculous, he's got the job. And I think he had the job even before Jared Stidham was injured and throwing all those picks. I think they were just trying to play the field to see what their options were. But I think the plan was to have Cam in there. I mean, he's a veteran. He's proven. I think they were just kind of weighing their options, seeing what Stidham could do. But the job was always Cam's.
Yep, I agree. I think we were on that train early on that it was his job to lose, and I think he's going to be in line to be comeback player of the year because I don't think he's going to be a loser when he goes out on that field.
Yeah.
Zach, the last thing that I want to bring up before we roll off here tonight, I know it's been kind of a weird episode, and I kind of feel weird staring at myself on the screen. But I do want to talk a little bit about the college football rankings came out. The top 25 for the preseason was announced. Clemson comes in at number 1. Of course, we all kind of suspected that because they've got Trevor Lawrence coming back and Etienne coming back, and a lot of the same faces that we know. But I was kind of shocked with a lot of the rankings, specifically number 2 being Ohio State, and they're not even going to play this year. Bama dropping down to 3 was a little bit weird because I'm used to seeing them up at number 1 or 2, which I'm sure that was something that's going to be changed after week 1 whenever Ohio State's posting zeros and Alabama wins the game.
Yep.
But I want to definitely mention that the Tennessee Volunteers cracked the top 25 for the preseason rankings, and it's something that Justin and I have been talking about a lot, is that the Vols are back, and whenever you guys finally start to realize it, it'll be a good day for you because the Vols are going to be here to stay for a while. Jeremy Pruitt is building a winning team in Tennessee, and they're going to be a contender. Maybe they won't be up in the top 10 this year, but by next year, that's a top 10 team.
Yeah, that's super exciting. It'll be very interesting to see the SEC just go against itself over and over and week in and week out. So it's I think it's going to be tough for the Volunteers, but I mean, anything can happen.
If anybody runs the gauntlet in the SEC this year, that's your national champion. Don't even bother trying to play a BCS national title game. If you go undefeated through an all SEC schedule, you're the national champ.
Absolutely. That's the hardest conference in college football. We all know that. And you're not going to get away with these ridiculous, 17-0 records or whatever they might be when 3 or 4 of those teams are scrubs. It's right. All SEC top teams. So, yeah, I agree.
Yep. Guys, we're going to go ahead and bounce off here a little bit early tonight. As you see, it's just been me on here. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with Zach. He didn't have Wi-Fi at the house that he's at now. He's in the process of moving, and will be set up in his studio next week. Justin, of course, is building the boxing gym there in Johnson City. He's the president of Tri-Cities Boxing and Fitness, and he's got to be there to make sure that the boxing is regulation and all that stuff. So it is what it is. We'll come back next week and talk a little bit more. But real quick, shout out to all of our Cyclones fans out there. The Cyclones are now 1-0 on the season. High school football kicked off there in Tennessee, and boy, are we for it. We were watching it live on the old internets this past weekend, and I can't wait to see them again. 1-0 and still reigning, defending, undefeated state champions. Way to go, boys.
That was a great game. It was really fun to watch. And Justin and you and I talked about it, but they kind of looked a little rusty. You can tell they didn't have a good preseason or anything like that. But I think once they shook the cobwebs off, man, they got rolling and they look real good.
Man, Parker Hughes putting up 3 touchdowns, 183 yards as a receiver. Bryson had a pretty good game. Bryson Rollins. Deuce was in on almost every tackle. So it was cool to see the guys that we knew that we've had on our show go out there and perform so well. And I'm for it. I can't wait for this next week. But guys, tune back in next Monday night. We'll be back hopefully with all of our faces on the screen, so you don't just have to look at my mug. And we'll see you then. Peace.
I'll say this.